All right, welcome back to Conscious Construction, the Conscious Enneagram podcast. I'm your host, Abby Robbins, and we're back again here, second episode of 2026. And today we're kicking off with a very, very dear friend of mine, former client turned colleague turned friend, Caryn Berley. If you know Caryn, she's hosted her own podcasts and done all sorts of amazing work in the Enneagram space. If you know her, you know how incredible she is and what an amazing presence she brings to her work. So I'm excited for her to share more about her and her work and her capital W work and her lowercase w work. Yeah. Before we dive into the conversation, though, a couple announcements. Don't forget the Centering Prayer Summit is in just a couple weeks on January 24th and 25th. Click the link down below to register. I'm on a bill with Cynthia Bergeau, which is real cool. So check that out. It's going to be really cool. I'm very excited about it. Also, our next Enneagram office hours is February 2nd. That's Monday at 6 p.m. Central. I had to postpone office hours this month, so apologies for anybody who wanted to join but couldn't on January 5th because I was still sick. Man, being sick the first week of the year makes the second week of the year very challenging. So anyway, it's been so many different things running around my brain trying to get things taken care of this week. Another reason why this podcast is coming out a little bit later than I anticipated. But you know what? I decided the podcast is going to come out when it comes out. You guys are going to like it when it does. That's all that matters. So just bear with me and my inconsistency. Yeah, there's nothing else I have to say about that. Keep an eye out over on my Substack for more information about some upcoming workshops that I have. I'm teaching some in-person and online workshops in the next couple months, and I'll have more info about that here soon. So be sure to head on over to my Substack and click subscribe. It's totally free. And then you get all the information about when I'm doing cool things like workshops and retreats and whatnot. And on top of that, you get access to my writing, my blog, my thoughts, all those sorts of things, teachings on the Enneagram and spirituality and all sorts of stuff, as well as this podcast delivered right into your inbox every week or whenever I put it out. And on top of that, paid subscribers to this podcast and to the Substack get all sorts of extra bonuses, like cool bonus episodes, as well as some discounts and things that are all kind of coming forward as I do more teaching. So go click subscribe, and don't forget to leave a rating or review in your podcast app. That is a huge help. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to comment, share, subscribe, smash that notification button. Why do we smash it? Why can't you just click it? I don't know. Anyway, all that said, these are all things that really help the podcast. So go check all that out. Do these things to help support the podcast. It's a huge help. Also, Conscious Construction is brought to you by Perk Coffee. So click the link down below to get 15% off all your orders at Perk Coffee using code ABBY15. All the info's down in the show notes. That's just my way of saying thank you to being a listener, to being a supporter of this podcast. And without any further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Caryn. Awesome. Welcome back to Conscious Construction, the Conscious Enneagram podcast. I'm your host, Abby Robbins, and I'm here today with my good friend and colleague, Caryn Berley. Caryn, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always so fun to talk to you. So I'm really looking forward to it. I always struggle with my professional bio, but professionally, I'm a multi-certified Enneagram teacher, coach, healer. And what I do with clients is to really help them tap into their inner wisdom. And I particularly love going through the somatic lens, body type stuff. And it's really about finding and accessing more wholeness and being able to see things more clearly. Find this, I really see myself as this, I'm always seeking a deeper level of satisfaction, on a real level. And it's been kind of a lifelong theme for me. So I try to get my ego out of the way as I support people to get to that really nourishing stuff. And that is through, relationship and compassion, curiosity, and gentle guidance, and also venturing into the shadows and holding the tensions and the paradoxes. So that's my intro for myself today.
I love it. I love it. And I like that you said it's your intro for yourself today. It might be different tomorrow. I love it.
Absolutely.
Well, tell me a little bit about it almost feels hard to have this conversation because I know you and I know a lot of your story and we've been friends and have worked together for a long time now. But tell me a little bit about how you got started in this
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Well, kind of early adulthood, I think it all starts very early on. Most of our stuff does, right? So I guess as a kid, I was just talking to my therapist about this of like, was I always kind of a seeker? And I
Mm,
can see the roots of that for sure. I grew up fairly secular and I had a lot of questions and I didn't have a lot of places that I asked them or knew that I could ask them.
mm,
And as I was kind of, going through adolescence and college and early adulthood, they got bigger and I found myself feeling lost and confused in a lot of ways. And professionally, I kind of found myself on a path. I went to graduate school for social work. So psychology, sitting with people, trying to understand what was going on for people, what's going on for myself, led me to social work. And the recurring big breakdown theme for me has been, okay, it's time to step out on your own. Like, who are you? And that's talking to myself, who am I? What do I want to do? What is life going to look like for me? And my whole system would just feel totally overwhelmed. Like simple questions would shut me down. I just, I didn't know, and I wanted to know
mm,
before I did anything.
yeah.
So social work felt right. I found my way there. And as I was getting ready to graduate, that started coming up again. Okay, what are you going to do in the world? What is your job
Mm,
going to be? What population you want to work with? And in social work, they really teach us, be ready for anyone, like be
yeah.
open door, like, and the people who need it most, that's who you need to be serving. And also the social justice lens of my program was like, also be aware of your identities and
Mm,
who is it really best for you to serve as like this privileged white woman, really? And all of those questions were just kind of flooding me. And fortunately, I had a therapist at the time who brought in the Enneagram.
mm,
And I had heard of it before. My story with that is my sister-in-law had mistyped me. I looked at it. It didn't do a lot for me. I put it down. This time, when I was really kind of asking those questions and in a safe container to be offered something, really looking about like what's going on, and really, honestly, the question was, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I just make life work?
Isn't that just that is the question I think we all like, if the Enneagram lands for you, it's because you're asking that question, like, "What the fuck is wrong with me? What's happening?"
And it's helpful when there's someone who's really compassionate and has a bigger view to say, "Okay, like, I hear your." And honestly, I needed on whatever level for that question or whatever version of that question I was bringing for it to be valid,
Yeah.
because a lot
Yeah.
of my journey and being, I'm a social 9, if that hasn't been said, a lot of that is, like, a lot of my life, I think in one of the pieces of literature, they call it like, pathologically adaptable is one of the qualities of the social 9.
Oh, okay, we gotta pause on that phrase. I don't know that I've ever heard that. Damn. That's kind of brutal. I apologize to every 9 listening to this right now. We're gonna have to put, like, a trigger warning on this episode.
I know, I'm trying to remember where I read it, if it was Helen Palmer or it was just like, one line and one paragraph somewhere.
Yeah, those, like,
And
throwaways, and you're like, "Oh."
it's, I think it's a Gabor Mate quote. It could have come from somewhere else, but it's like, to be well in a sick society is not health, that's not wellness.
Mm,
And I think
mhm,
as a a 9, there is, for me, there is this longing to be normal, to be able to be normal, to fit in, and then never quite feeling like I can do that. And yet the energy of my type as I've learned and as this kind of like was introduced to me is people would look at me and see whatever they're seeing and say, "You seem like you're doing fine. You seem like you're doing great. You
Mhm.
seem friendly and smart and kind and what and I don't see why you should be having any problems." And internally to be feeling flooded and overwhelmed and lost and confused and having that be the reflection encouraged and increased like what we call like the split, right?
Yeah.
Between like what is I don't you can probably explain that better than I have the words right now. But it's like this painful sense of
Mhm.
separation of why is no one seeing me? Why do I know that there's something wrong with me and nobody can help me with it because they won't even acknowledge it?
Mm.
And what am I supposed to do if I don't have the answer and nobody else even seems to be seeing this? So
Yeah.
fortunately, my therapist at the time was we worked together and she brought in the Enneagram. And as she introduced even just the overview, right? This my story of it is I was listening to a totally random podcast, a comedy podcast. It's Pete Holmes, who loves talking about comedy and spirituality. And he had a guest on who like 90 minutes, he does these really long interviews
Yeah.
like 90 minutes in, she's like, "My friends are gonna make fun of me because I have to talk about the Enneagram, and I use it with my therapist, and it's so useful." And, I'm driving to therapy, I pause the podcast, I go in, and my therapist goes, "There's something I like to use, it's called the Enneagram, are you interested?"
Mm.
And of course, the synchronicity, I was like, "Yeah, totally." And as she started offering me kind of likely types and just brief overviews to see where we might dig in more, she started with 2, knowing I'm a social worker. And I said, "Yeah, maybe like half of that, 2/3
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that resonates." And then she went to I said, "Someone told me I was a 6 once," and she read that, and I go, "Yeah, like half of that, sure."
Mhm.
And I have my chronic disappointment, my low-level dissatisfaction set in. I was like, "This isn't gonna be anything."
Yeah.
And then she read me just and I don't even remember the words, but just the overview of the 9, and I was like, "That's what's going on. That's what's
Oh,
happening in me."
yeah.
It was so validating to be like, "Here's the vibe, here's the general thing, and here's what's underneath that." And I was like, "Oh, yes, there's
Yeah.
something underneath that, and you know something about that, or we could explore it." And it was such a relief. And yeah, mostly relief, honestly.
Mm. Yeah.
I was already in a low place. It wasn't like I was like looking and it was like, "Yeah, here's something."
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because I think there are ways in which when we're in those harder places, the Enneagram can do this thing where it feels like a punch in the gut and it's a complete and total relief. Like you're like, finally, something has punched me in the gut. Like
Yeah,
something has brought words to this thing I haven't been able to articulate, and no one else seems to be catching on to. And I think that that piece in particular is really key for a lot of nines. And I might even go as far as to say, like, the types on the triangle, right? Who have this tendency to be a little more chameleon like, and they're maybe a little more multifaceted in some ways where like what they're getting in reflection from other people is rarely getting at what their internal experience is, right? Like, I got typed as an 8, and it was like, "Yeah, no shit." But, like, I think 3, 6, and 9 have a little bit more trouble, but you talked about this kind of this real tension between what you were experiencing internally and what other people were seeing and reflecting back to you. That feels like a particularly 9 challenge, right? Because the unconscious patterning that's kind of hijacking your experience isn't allowing you to express what's actually going on, right?
yeah,
Especially not to the degree that you're feeling it, right?
right.
This comes back to that, like, there's something about the expression out in the world versus what you're experiencing. And so I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about that and kind of how that affected this time in your life where you were like struggling to express more clearly what was going on for you.
Yeah, great question. And well said. I was thinking about the 3 and the 6 as well. And I'm married and was at that time partnered with my husband, who's a self-preservation 3, and talk about not putting out the image of what is going on inside. And,
Yeah.
fortunately, we were able to look at those things together and really learn about each other in a new way with better language. So, well, tell me your question again.
I'm just wondering if you have any more to say about this tension between what you experience and what you're capable of expressing.
Yes, it's really fascinating seeing people's responses to other nines, like whether it's in media or in life,
Mhm.
and what they see versus what see. And even before the Enneagram, people will be like, oh my gosh, that person's being so passive aggressive, or like, wow, like they're avoiding me. And I was always like, well, there's probably so much going on, and like there's all this context. And
Mhm.
without recognizing it, there was like a defensiveness
Yeah.
that would come from me and project onto people, whether they were a 9 or not,
Yeah.
really. And to start to one of the other challenges with 9 is we are so externalized, and this has been
Mhm.
hitting me so hard, like, deeper and deeper as a lot of these things are. That day with my therapist was just some seeds. It was just like an opening, and there was many things I was like, "Well, yeah, like, I think this is what's going on," and, like, not quite, as we all are like, "Well, not quite." And, yeah, descriptions are flawed, there are nuances, and also there are deeper ways that the type structure can only become clearer as we go deeper and as we learn to observe more skillfully.
Yeah.
Um, and so that piece makes it extra hard, I think, as a 9 who sees myself and is seen as very self-aware, and,
Mhm.
often self-deprecating gets confused with self-awareness.
Yeah,
Um,
well, yeah.
or it's disarming in some way. It's like, "Oh, like, she doesn't even know how to introduce herself, like, that can't be threatening," and or whatever it is, right, for my
Yeah.
ego.
Yeah.
And it's like, as I now know about 9s, and those who care to look underneath with 9s start to sense the power, the rage, the
Mhm.
intensity that is not so easily expressed and
Yeah.
is not so easily known for me even by myself. And I
Mhm.
know some 9s who express more intensely. I know, like,
Yeah.
everyone's got their different experiences, but one person in one of my early trainings said, they were married to a 9, they said, "Still waters run deep."
Mm.
And if you just look at the calm on the surface, you are not
Yeah.
recognizing how much is going on under there. And for much of my life, I even though I had this question of, like, maybe something feels off, or, like, I don't know what I'm doing here, I also didn't know how to recognize the depth in myself. And even last night talking to my husband, we were seeing ways that I struggle to clarify defining experiences in my
Mhm.
story, in my, ongoing. There is this deflection and defensiveness that comes up around being too direct, too clear, too
Mhm.
intense. And yet that feeling then grows, the tension grows between what I'm able to put in words or show to
Mhm.
people and what's really inside of me. And to be honest, am scared of it still.
Yeah.
And a lot of the journey is recognizing that, acknowledging it, and taking one step toward it and seeing what happens, and going slowly enough that my nervous system can begin to be more discerning about, is this truly unsafe, or is this an old pattern that is
Yeah.
actually safe right now with the people I found myself around and the awareness I've cultivated. And it sounds like a doable thing, and it's so murky.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love that. Like, there's so much and that's the thing, like, you've been doing this work for a while now, and there's always more work to be done. I think that there is a misconception for people who are, like, new to the Enneagram, and I feel like it's having another moment, right? Amy Poehler's talking about it on her podcast. We're gonna hit another, like, wave of people getting really, like, excited about this thing. And that's great. I love that, and I think there's some, like, misconception that at some point, your type stops being a problem, quote, unquote,
Yeah.
and, like, it doesn't. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah, am not I'm working on being more okay of if I have content to create, to let myself create it, but the little, like, catchy thing in my head that I haven't put out there is, like, there's probably 3 of them, but 2 of the biggest mistakes when you learn about the Enneagram, one is overly identifying with your type, right? Saying,
Mhm.
"Yes, that's me, that's all of me." The other is under identifying with it, like, not letting yourself really see all the
Mm.
facets of it and saying, "Oh, yeah, that describes me, and I'm done," or, "I don't have to be that actually," and skipping all the work in
Yeah,
between to nuance it, and
yeah.
this is that tension and that I see as core to the Enneagram work and any good
Mhm.
inner work, and I've been hanging out with a lot of Jungians lately, and it's very similarly
Yeah.
described, right, as this the tension of the paradox of
Mm.
the label can be really helpful, and you can also get lost in the label.
Yeah.
But if you refuse to label or, and as a 9, I can fall into this trap of like, well, it's all valid and
Mhm.
we have
Yeah.
all the types and all of that. And if we don't get nuanced enough and we don't kind of acknowledge the weight of the discomfort of some of the things that really are going on, then there's no way to work with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think again in this very somewhat indirect way, you're highlighting again, like, that law of 3, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't do the work if you can't say, "Yes, I am this type." And you can't do the work if you can't also say, "No, I'm every type." Like, the work as in holding both of those fully. I'm an 8, right? And you go through the list of problems with 8s and the strengths and the weaknesses and all the things. Yeah, that does a real good job of describing my experience. And I've had complete phases of my life where, well, I'm actually working on some 9-ish stuff. I'm actually working on some 1-ish stuff. I'm actually working on some 3-ish stuff. I'm actually working on right, like, we aren't so two-dimensional
Yeah.
that this one label or this one description is gonna sum everything up.
Right.
That doesn't mean that the label's not helpful.
Right, and it is part of a matter of how the typology of the Enneagram gets pulled out and removed from the esoteric teachings
Mhm.
that are kind of, in my opinion, it's very surface level to just look at the types, and that's also really deep and, like,
Yeah.
could people
Yeah.
can do that for a lifetime. And if we're rooting in, like, the cosmology and the deeper teachings and the kind of spiritual aspects, which is something that, as I mentioned growing up, I didn't have a lot of rooting in that, and the
Mhm.
Enneagram actually, because it had such clear language and there were such, like, tangible ways for me to see it, really allowed me to develop a deeper sense of spirituality and faith in
Mhm.
something, and my language for it continues to challenge me and be a whole different journey. But, like, no, there is this esoteric nature, and I do not claim to be an expert in it, and in fact, I think there are very few ways to even access that wisdom. But the tastes that I've been able to get from teachers who have deeply studied and devoted decades to
Mm.
deepening into that, not just learning all the types really well,
Yeah.
um, really talk about, the Enneagram of process, or the ways that we visit each of the points on
Mhm.
the Enneagram. And that doesn't mean we stop leading with our core type. It means that we visit all of these energies, and that's part of our being whole.
Yeah. I don't remember who said it, but it's like there is some sense in which like we go through we do K through 12 in all the types, but then we go get a PhD in one of them, right? Like that's kind of the level is like there's a degree to which we're we've got we've got issues and strengths 1 through 9. You know, like we've got something good and challenging in all those spaces, and there's one that we've just spent so much time that's where we're gonna be able to work for a really long time.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to frame it. The way that it's been presented to me is that all of that may happen, like, before we're 1 year old or something,
Yeah, right?
where it's not that we're actively learning K through 12, it's that we're visiting each of those places, and there's one that it is we're not getting as much, where it's stickier, we
Mm,
not that we mastered the others, but it's like those have less of a pull on us.
yeah,
And so we're not, like, choosing to go get our PhD, we're like, "This is the thing I am being
yeah.
told I need to learn, and I can try to do other things, but there's a gravitational pull,
Mm,
whether I like it or not." Maybe
yeah.
that's a little life offering the curriculum.
Yeah, like, well, here's what we got.
Yeah, which doesn't mean it doesn't help to be interdisciplinary, as anyone with a PhD knows, they have to, bring in
Yeah.
supporting context. And yes, this is what so much of our unconscious time and energy goes toward. And
Mhm.
if we're lucky and we get the knock and we start to wake up and we start to explore and we're willing to, and we have a strong enough ego already to start to look outside
Mhm.
of it, like, I don't know if dismantle's the right word, or find cracks in it, right?
Yeah.
Then that's going to be the focal point just by nature of how our lives are set up. And I think
Mm,
that's where I also am so drawn to the Enneagram's spiritual side, because the core of it is we do the work to wake up in the context of everyday life.
yeah.
It's not going outside of society or only surrounding yourself with people who are on the same path. It's, yes, do your inner work and find spaces that can really hold you in that, and find teachers that can help you see what you can't see, and don't stop doing your
Yeah.
regular life. Take
Yeah.
that and let it inform, and let yourself be taught by the unconscious person that you
Yeah.
aren't able to get rid of for whatever
Yeah.
reason, or learn how to set the boundaries or whatever. It's not about
Yeah.
having perfected end result where you're just, like, at peace all the time, and I think the 9 falls into that trap more than any other type, which my husband was pointing out to me recently, of like, "Oh, there's this part of you that just wants to have done the work and be done, and have
Mm,
it good forever."
yeah.
And I got the PhD, right? Like, and it's like, he literally has a PhD, and it's like, well, then you keep going, like, then you apply it, then you
Yeah.
use it, then you keep learning, and there's going back to my kind of breakdowns, like, there's a part of me that's like, "I don't I don't wanna do that, sounds
Mhm.
really hard." I don't like it. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I'm curious, like, what I think all of us have some degree of wanting to arrive or hoping that we arrive or, however you wanna phrase that. But I'm curious for you, like, what is it about the process that feels challenging to you? What about it makes it feel hard? What makes it feel like something you don't wanna do?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'm sure there's so many pieces, but what comes up initially is, honestly, I see it as kind of like a worthiness wound,
Mm,
potentially. And, interestingly, I've studied a lot with Marion Gilbert, and she puts worthiness in the body center, like worthiness to
mm,
belong, like, in the world.
mm. Yeah.
Um, and going back to that externalization piece, and the ways I was raised, like, there's all this context, right? But in that 9 space, it's like, well, I could just be if I can just be done, if I can be as big as the whole universe and hold it all and not have to be so self-involved that I am, like, always thinking about myself, then I'll be able to serve others better, and I will be
Mm.
able to see people more clearly and help them and show up for them. This is the fantasy, I think,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is like, no, if I can just get out of the way, and my
Mm.
social work training and a lot of training really, harps on that, and it's important, I think, especially to some other types, right? To be like, "Hey, this isn't about you." Um,
Yeah.
and yet as a 9, hearing that, I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And it goes too far in the other way, and it's like,
Yeah.
actually, some of it is about you.
Mm.
And more
Yeah.
than you realize because you so don't want it to be about you. Because that
Yeah.
sounds narcissistic. Russ Hudson talks about in 9s and 6s being allergic to narcissism, right? Like, it's like, "No,
Yeah.
no, no, it's not about me." And
Mhm.
yet when we don't acknowledge where it is about me, that's where I ran into problems, like, in social work where I'm like, "Well, wait a second, like, I believe that people who don't have access to resources should have access to resources." And yet when I insert myself into a position of, being part of the flow of resources or choosing where I'm focusing, if I don't include myself in
Mm.
some way, where is my passion? Where is my power? Where is my story? And when that gets totally lost, what happened to me is I feel useless. I feel like I've disappeared. I feel like I'm not really here. I'm just a conduit, but in a
Mm.
way that doesn't work because it doesn't feel good because I'm not alive, because I'm not
Yeah.
letting myself
Yeah.
also be here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so powerful, and I mean, you and I have worked together, in the past, and what I always tell for nines is, we gotta shoot for asshole, right? Because, like you said, nines go so far in this other direction that and there's a sensitivity to this, right? Like that, allergic to narcissism, right? There's such a high level of sensitivity that, like, if you can get a 9 to do something that makes them feel like an asshole, then, like, you have maybe got them to a place where, "Oh, you're, like, being a regular person to the rest of
Yeah,
us,"
right.
right? Like, there is a way, that you have to the work that we have to do has to take into account where we're starting, right? Like, I would never give that advice to an 8, right? I would never give that advice to a 3 or a 7 or a 1, right? Like, I wouldn't give that advice to actually many really just 9s, right? Like, that's the 9 advice
Right.
because we're all starting from these different positions and we all have these sensitivities to, and aversions
Yeah.
to different aspects of our humanity.
Right. I mean, I gave myself the task, and I don't think I was successful when I was, getting married, and I said, I excuse me, I can't even say it. I was like, "I should be a bridezilla. I should work
Yeah.
to be a bridezilla because
Uh-huh.
it's, like, not in my nature," right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean and 9s out there who are like, "But I do feel strongly about stuff." That doesn't mean we don't get frustrated, feel
Yeah.
strongly, do things that are crude. It's that but I like that the way you said it of, like, for you to get to a place where you're so willing to be vocal about something that you feel like an
Mhm.
asshole
Yeah.
is a really hard place to get to. I have learned through the work there are ways I am an asshole to people that I don't register as
Yes.
being in the
Yes.
moment that are, like, shocking to my
Yeah.
ego because
Yeah.
it's set up to not. And so when
Mhm.
people and going back to, like, watching how other people respond, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, you guys are all wrong." It's like, "Wait a second. Oh, like, not being attuned to, like, half disappearing or fully disappearing
Yeah.
is cruel
Yeah.
sometimes, and I'm doing it to not be cruel, to prevent myself from being able to be cruel, and it doesn't work, which is the crux
Yeah.
of any of this work. But to actually be like, I was so clear and direct that I currently feel like an asshole.
Yeah.
Most of the time I do get praised for that. I'm fortunate. I know there are other nines who are surrounded by people who have been so untrained to treat that, to expect them to be the way they are, that if they start doing that, it really does shake things
Very
up. I feel
disruptive.
For sure. I feel fortunate that the people I'm closest to, when I do that, they applaud me and they say, "I can see you more clearly. I love seeing more of you. Keep
Yeah.
going." Mostly, yeah,
Yeah.
I've gone extreme a couple times, but only because I've been doing the work. I don't think I could
Yeah.
have even come close to that before.
Yeah. But it's so powerful too, because like what you said, it's like, I can see you more clearly. And I think that that really highlights like the fruit of this work for nines, because there is this like deep, deep, deep desire to be seen and connected and known by other people. And somewhere in the programming or in the experience, you get the message that like, I can only be connected if I do X, Y, and Z. Right? If I make myself small, if I don't rock the boat, if I am easygoing, if I'm go with the flow, whatever it is, right? But that actually only continues to obscure who you really are to the people around you and feeds into this sense of disconnection, which
Yeah.
then forces the ego to continue doing the thing, right? It's a horrible feedback loop. But when
Yeah.
you step into that and you are the asshole, quote unquote, and you're clear about what you want and where you wanna go and who you are, right? Suddenly we can see you.
Yeah. I
And that's
wanna
when
make
you're
a
getting what you want.
Yes, and I wanna make a caveat because I was just listening to a great, Type 9 panel that Josh Levine put out on his podcast, and they were talking about how when a 9 is in a comfortable environment, they will sometimes be the loudest, most obnoxious, but it's almost always on behalf of someone else. It's like an
Yeah. Yeah.
advocacy, like a
Mhm.
duty, like,
Absolutely.
thing. So I think what we're talking about mostly applies to this, like, and it has to be
About you.
self-interested. Yeah.
Yes, it's about you. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing because, right, in the body center, like, we have I think you and I think Marianne are very right about this, like, worthiness in the body center. I think sometimes people wanna put that more in, like, the heart center, like, I'm worthy of relationship, and it's like, worth it lands much more in the body,
Right.
right? And
Value and
yes, exactly,
relational value,
because
heart, but
it's an incarnated experience,
yeah.
right? And with that, with this very incarnated, physical, embodied experience comes this like hyper sense of boundaries. And with that, this like hyper sense of justice, right? There's this like, we have a sense of like, this is eights, nines, and ones have a real sense of like, this is how it works, right?
Yep.
These are the lines. We don't cross them. We don't, right? And we have three different like responses to this sensitivity. But I think nines feel so much more comfortable expressing this sensitivity to boundaries being crossed, the sensitivity to injustice, etc., on behalf of other people,
Mhm.
right?
Or
Like,
something whole, like, behalf of
yeah,
the whole world, really, like,
exactly, right? And
yeah.
especially if it's on behalf of the whole world, right? Like that's the nine's jam. But when a nine, like if a nine can't see themselves as part of the whole world, right? It gets lost.
And it's a very lonely feeling, and that's
Mm,
what I was bumping into
yeah.
when I was starting the journey, and I bump into it again and again, is abandoning myself to try to bring the world together in some way is recreating the split that says I am separate, and then reinforcing this story, this conscious belief of no, everyone's connected. And it's that tension of,
Mm.
can I acknowledge how separate I feel without like telling that story so much in a way that it's overwhelming, and that I am
Yeah.
so cynical and so low, which I visit
Mm.
that space.
Yeah.
And people might not even know it, right? Because that ego ideal says, no, we're together, and
Mhm.
love is
Mhm.
real, and all of this stuff. It's a hard thing to tap into and describe, and it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful for the nuanced Enneagram teachings that don't
Mhm.
just give a word, but help flesh out and help
Yeah.
us inquire and explore, well, what touches that in me, in my life right now? Not in theory, not so I can
Yeah.
go tell everyone else and heal them, but because I matter and my healing
Mm.
is woven in with the whole
Yeah.
already without having to prove it or just name it and not do the work. Um, and I get my whole system is set up to distract me as soon as I get close to that.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for that. I appreciate this perspective, right? Because this nuanced teaching, right? I think our culture has such a problem with learning about things instead of being a part of things,
Yeah.
right? And there's this way that you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, and there is no shortage of information, good information. I mean, there's also a lot of bad information, but there's like tons of good information on the types, the system, the processes, this esoteric knowledge, all of these things, right? You can find all of those things, but that's not it. Like what you're talking about, this internal movement towards what is maybe a little challenging, what is maybe a little scary, right? This movement towards the things we have moved away from. That is the point. That is the work. And it's only, and you said this to some extent very early in the conversation, that it's like it's only in doing the work that we actually understand more about the types and more about the system. These pieces only really click when we are actually a part of the work, not just
Yeah.
learning about it.
And when we're one of the big things for me as a nine, and of course is universal to a degree, is allowing ourselves to be affected.
Mm.
And so this pull to keep things as they are, or as has gotten me this far in terms of survival, says don't let it really change you. Learn it, maybe talk about it, espouse
Yeah,
it, point it to it in other people, but the people doing the integration is different from information, right? The
mhm,
information is out there. An early coach of mine said, information can be free, like put out information.
yeah,
Integration requires more of people.
yeah,
They're probably going to need to pay for it if you want the space and all of
yeah,
it, to compensate the people who are offering that as
yes,
their gift. And you can't fake it, and
yeah,
you can't rush it, and you can't promise a specific outcome from it. And
yeah,
that makes it hard to wrap your head around because it's not happening in your head.
yeah, yeah, and it's like trying to describe what an elephant is if somebody has never been next to an elephant, right? Like, you can talk about it, right? You can draw pictures, you can make diagrams, you can, you can describe it, right? You can like learn around it so well. But like until you are there, presence to presence with that thing, all of the information is just a little bit wrong.
Right. Well, it's coming through someone's lens,
Yeah.
and it's not embodied fully in
Mhm.
yourself. And it's a lovely starting point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I two things come up for me. One with the elephant is that I've seen like a meme that is a bunch of people on around an elephant, and each of them are doing something to different parts of the elephant and then saying what it is based on that.
Yeah.
So someone's like at the tusk being like, an elephant is sharp and hard. And
Yeah.
then someone's at the ear saying an elephant is like this. And so that came up. And then the other one is, Abby, I'm just gonna give props to your Substack, and your writing
Thank
because
you.
it's when I have the, attention span to read the long form stuff, it's really lovely, but you talk about this in the story of the man who's, like, obsessed with Japan,
The
and
man who loved Rome. Yeah.
oh, Rome, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
He's, like, loved Rome and thought he knew everything about it and actually went, and it was such a different experience,
Yeah.
so go read that if you want more on that piece,
Yeah.
but but it is, and I fall into the trap daily, I
Yeah.
would say, of thinking, even coming into this podcast, of like, I need to know how to describe myself professionally because people need to know how to do that so they know if they want to look into what I'm up to or whatever.
Yeah.
And I have to consciously practice, come back into myself,
Mm.
trust that as I'm doing my work, it will be transmitted. I will allow things to be said that are needing to be said.
Yeah.
And sure, I didn't make bullet points for this, but like sometimes
Yeah.
bullet points are helpful and whatever.
Yeah.
But the deepest layer of it can only come from that true place, and people can tell the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I mean, you mentioned that you said this word earlier in the conversation, but like that requires so much faith, right? Just
My
squinty face
face,
too.
my face is just like,
Ugh.
yeah,
Oh,
but yeah,
gross.
yeah,
But right, because it is, I think when we shift into, and I've been, this is hitting me this is hitting really close to home for me because as I've like re-engaged with my lowercase w work and like that also is just somewhat problematically very intertwined with my capital W work, right? Like as I'm re-engaging with this and like starting the podcast and trying to get more clients and doing all that, right? Like trying to build a business, I'm like, oh, well, if I just say the right thing, or if I just have the best website, or if I just tweak these things and I just present myself in this particular way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then everything's going to be fine. But the reality is I'm only going to attract clients or listeners or readers or whatever it is if this is clear and aligned, right?
right. And the
If
ones that you want to attract.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, and that's the thing is like but that requires so much faith,
Yeah.
right? It requires so much faith, one, in the fact that I've done enough work for that to come through, right? Like, I think that is what's it called?
The like
There's a
arc,
yeah, yeah,
the graph,
yeah, the graph. You know what I'm talking about.
Louis something.
Yeah, there's some name for it, but like the more you're into it, like the deeper you get into it, your confidence about it goes down, right?
Yeah.
And I think if there's any place where this graph is most extreme, it's probably in this kind of like inner spiritual work, right? Because when you first start, you're like, "Oh, look at me, I'm going." And then like you get in and you're like, oh shit. But I think it takes a faith in trusting that like, okay, I am engaged in this work and it can be seen, but it also takes an extreme amount of faith in, I want to say the work itself, but also like where the work is coming from, like whatever your spiritual belief, right? The universe, source, God, Allah, whatever, faith in that like, oh, the work works.
Yeah. I relate so hard. And I think that's why we are connected.
Yeah.
Um,
This is why we're friends.
and I know, like, Gurdjieff says something like, man cannot do, and is pointing to kind of
Yeah.
that 3 in all of us that says, I am the doer.
Yeah.
And there is like, well, you are someone showing up and doing things and allowing things to be done, but the doing of the greater thing is not something that an individual has the
Yeah.
power to do. It is,
Yeah.
you are part of the dance, you're part of the orchestration, and there are times that it's important for you to act, but if you're not tuned in, paying attention, listening, following nudges about what that action even is, then whatever you're trying to do is absolutely not going to get
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like we hear this echoed through spiritual traditions, from like the yogic tradition, like in the Bhagavad Gita, all the way through to like the 12 steps, right? They talk about the first 3 steps as I can't, God can, I'll let God. Right? And it's like, oh yeah, the thing that I really want, this heart's desire, this thing that I am desperate for, I cannot do.
And I will say, back to my experience as a 9, on some level, I'm like, yeah, I can't. like it,
Yeah.
it's an ego level, but
Yeah.
it looks like all the other types are struggling so hard, and I can tell that they can't do it
Yeah.
the way they think they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to me, it feels confusing because I'm like, yeah, of course I can't. And
Mhm.
yet there's still something that's not surrendered. There's something that is
Yeah.
actually tied to this, like, well, it feels easier and I'll be right if I say I can't, and then I don't, and I'm setting everyone's expectations low, and then I'm not
Mm.
disappointing them. And it's all this egoic stuff
Yeah.
that can be dressed up or be the same language even
Yeah.
as that spiritual thing. And I think that's what you're saying and talking about, is we can say all the words, but
Mhm.
where is that coming from? And the work really, to me, is connecting on a subtle enough level
Mm.
to be more and more discerning about where is my work coming from,
Yeah.
and to be willing to, for me, the hard part is to be willing to get it wrong enough times to
Mhm.
even make any sort of discernment, instead of being like, well, I'm just going to watch everyone else and I'm going to reflect and then I'll be doing it right every time. Like, I'll skip the part that is hard and painful and in the
Yeah.
world, and then I don't move anywhere because I haven't shown up
Yeah.
to get beaten down enough to say, oh, that's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I want to like this particularity of the 9 struggle. I think there is something very real about how it is different. Right? Like you said, like I can see all the other types struggling to do their thing, and you're like, "Oh, I can see that's not gonna work." And you like adapt that to yourself in this very particular way, and it's like it's different for you, right? Like we talk about the virtue of like right action. There is something about the 9's work that requires action, right? And I think it's true that all of our work requires action, right? But like that's not the rub for most of us. That's not the issue. It's certainly not action is not the issue for me, right? As an 8, like of
Yeah.
all people. But it reminds me of like the story of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Where Arjuna is torn, right? Is unable to act. And Krishna comes down and is like, if you don't act, you're still making a decision. Don't let inaction be what you're defined by.
Yeah.
Step up and take action, even if it's wrong, even if you fail.
Yeah.
Right? Krishna says it's better to fail at your dharma than be successful at someone else's.
Ugh. It makes me like sick to my stomach. Like it's
Yeah.
yeah, you were the one who encouraged me to read the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, and yeah, it's still nuanced, right? Because sometimes the action that is a choiceful decision not to act in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of this, right? The language is not the thing. It's
Yeah.
pointing at the thing of I can consciously choose to not act, or I can fall asleep and let it pass me by and not act.
Yeah.
And those
And
are
those are
very
different.
different.
Yeah. Those are a universe apart, right? Both in your experience of it and its effect.
And even trickier, sometimes later it's like revealed that like maybe the work put me to sleep to not act then because of something else. And I wasn't really conscious, but I was, whatever. Like, and there's no way to fully know. I think that this is the part that also I struggle with anything as body types. It's like, I want objective truth. I want to know. I want to
Mm-hmm.
do
Mm-hmm.
do it right in some way. And the best we can do is to make meaning and tell stories about it that are in service to us and to the whole. And for that, that's like spiritual development. And that is wise teachers. And that is community that reflects things back in a way that is, conscious community can. And again, as a 9, it's sticky because I'm like, well, I'll just like get consensus and like everyone's telling me this except this one person. And then like I have to be like, well, what's really
Mm-hmm.
true for me? And I'm the only one who can know, but I can't see
Yeah.
myself. So I need the reflection. And it's like on and on. So none of this is like to the T, like just do this and you'll be okay. And I think that's the part I struggle with because when you say go act and go fail and go have that be part of it, I think other types are like, yeah, I've got the thick enough skin. I'm like, of course, like that's how you learn stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
have to do it. And I personally, and again, I know other nines with different levels of resilience for different reasons. I personally can get in touch with that part of me that says, but what if that one time I fail, I don't make it because I'm so sensitive and
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it and I don't want to be in that type of pain.
Mm-hmm.
There's a deep part doing that, running a lot of my unconscious decision making. And then there's a layer over being like, yeah, of course, like experiment, it'll be fine, like try
Yeah.
it. People are going to be kind to you because why wouldn't they be? And that's the tension. It's like,
Yeah.
can I make it conscious enough so that I see both voices?
Yeah.
And from there, once I truly can hold both, the third force, something can
Mm-hmm.
emerge. And
Yeah.
sometimes it looks like one or the other, but it's not because it's
Yeah. It's
flavored
different.
by the consciousness of both.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think there's something really interesting because, like, there's this dichotomy we often do. Like, I don't think this is a 9 thing. I think this is a human thing, right? And I work through this with so many clients that I work with that there's a sense of if I do this thing, right, and I fail, right? If I, as an 8, if I show up and I'm vulnerable, people are not going to respond well to that, and so I'm not going to do it. And I think a lot of times our approach to these sorts of like really ingrained and deeply held often false beliefs, but like we got receipts, it's like it's a truth, it's not the truth.
The partial truth.
Yeah, it's a partial truth. Like, yeah, that could happen, okay. But our response is like, "Oh, you can show up and people will be kind." Right? To do this opposite. And I've seen so many times in this work that, like, so much of the real work happens when you show up and fail.
Yeah.
when you show up, when I show up and I'm vulnerable and people don't respond the way that I'd hoped, when people continue the harm or make it worse, there's a depth of experience and there's a depth of this kind of draw when we actually step fully into what we're afraid of and the worst thing happens. What we imagine as the worst thing happening. Like when worst case scenario actually lands,
Yeah.
there's so much value in that because it like yes, I think having corrective experiences is super important and we can't move into these more challenging experiences without having some, level of safety or capacity developed through corrective experiences, but there's something about moving into these experiences where, like, you're almost sideswiped
Yeah.
by what you're most afraid of.
Right. And
It
you wouldn't do it if you knew, like,
Yeah.
knew how painful it was gonna be.
Yeah,
But it's the
absolutely.
opportunity, and I think it only does come when the capacity has been
Yeah.
built,
Yeah.
so that it's painful, but it's not re-traumatizing in the
Yes.
way that it may have been when it
Yeah.
happened initially, but it's like, not only do I hopefully have at least one person who I can go to and just be with my pain and be witnessed, but maybe I can even do that with myself.
Yeah. Because then when you do that, like, that's where the power of the fear is really neutralized. Like, yes, it's important to have corrective experiences and to build your capacity to step into risky situations slowly and develop that capacity, your capacity to hold and witness yourself. But, like, the magic actually happens when the thing you thought would kill you, the thing you avoided your entire life for all of the reasons, you experience it and you're able to hold yourself through that.
Yeah.
It completely again, if you have the supports to do that and you have the people around you and the guidance and all of the things necessary, that's that's where those moments can completely change the course of your life.
Yeah, and it's not there's, like, a little voice in my head tuning into the, like, motivational speaker that says, "And then you're invincible." But
It's not
it's
that.
not that because
Yeah.
you're still being affected
Yes,
by the
absolutely.
failure, the pain, the falling flat on your face. You're
Mhm.
not just brushing yourself off and going again, you're like, "Ow."
Yeah, yeah.
And let
You're
me get
holding that pain.
yeah, and let me if I need stitches, I need stitches. It might be a longer process, and that metabolization of I
Mm,
went in, I got sideswiped, I got the shit kicked out of me by life, and I'm still here, and when that gets into all 3 centers and
mhm.
integrates, it's not that you're invincible, it's that you're still human and still willing to be affected and know a little bit more of your capacity.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I'm like I just think it's so funny, like, we can talk about it and I'm feeling it and I can feel
yeah,
you feeling it, like, as we're saying it, and I think
yeah.
there's something there, and I know you're doing this in your cohort, and we do this in the work we have with people and in our own lives, but it's like, you have to do it.
Yeah.
I love these conversations because they nourish me and they,
Mhm.
help me hear your voice and my voice and voices chiming in and offering their specific transmission toward mostly the same stuff because it's the core of most good teachings.
Yeah.
And I love being involved in the conversation. And I love being invited to the conversation and hearing from people that me being in the conversation affected them. And it is part of the work. And my ouch point, my stigma is like, it's still not all of the work. Like I still have to find it in me to put myself in the position to be knocked down.
Mm,
And just
yeah,
it's an edge.
yeah,
Um, yeah, ongoing. And I'm like, I'll just sit back and tell people about it. And it's
Yeah.
actually, I'm not an effective guide, I will
Yeah.
say, when
Yeah.
I'm not in it myself.
Yeah.
And I think I'll say this about you, Abby, having worked with you and known you for quite a while. Like, one of the most potent pieces is that it is very clear that you are in it yourself and that you're doing it. And there's a vulnerability that many aids don't reveal that is very special to get to learn through your particular transmission.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I feel like we were, like, talking, and then at some point, we went
I know.
and again, I love that, and I mean, that's part of why I wanted to have you on this podcast and have this conversation is because I know that this is where our conversations can go because we can be with each other in this space and create this kind of opening, and I do have a deep hope that conversations like this can tug on people who are hearing it, right? That it's a nudge to move more deeply into their work. You know, it's not the words that we're saying, it is something deeper. And so I'm really grateful for you taking the time to chat with me today and again for the work that you're doing for yourself and for the world, for your people and who you're guiding through this. Yeah, and now I'm like, okay, this is the point where I transition and I'm like, where can people find out more about you? It's like, this transition has never felt so bizarre, but here we are. We're just gonna do it.
Yeah, well, we can take it slow. Yeah, thank you. I am so grateful. And I, the term essence friends gets thrown around, and I just feel so lucky that part of what the Enneagram has brought me is these people who are not skipping over that
Yeah,
drop into the deepest work
yeah,
and who can talk about it and can
yeah,
be articulate about it. And that's part of my upbringing and my stuff is like that feels so important to me.
yeah,
It's the energetic level, but it's also the congruence with the words that are being said and the precision that
yeah,
we have to find those words and sometimes stumble through them too.
yeah. Maybe more
But
times than not.
yeah, and that's that's so human and it's play. It gets to be play. So I'm deeply touched and I also knew you saw me before the conversation. I was like fretting about like a little thing. And I'm like, if I can just drop in, I know this is gonna be good. So I'm not surprised and I am so happy to
Yeah,
be here with you. And I'll add just another piece of my Enneagram story that you really were and are a huge part of it, because as I started going deeper after the initial exposure and reading some things, I found your work. I found one of your older versions of your podcast, and you were bringing in the social justice lens, the context, the racialization of identity work, the like people who are having really like their own experiences and bringing their voices forward. And a lot of the other things I had found were much more religious toned and didn't resonate for me at all, pretty much at all. And I was like, oh no, did I find this thing? And I'm touched by it. And it's like not really what I wanted it to be. So finding your work and to even be shown, no, there's something here and it's possible to bring that into the real world as it is without glossing over all these layers of not just the spiritual, but the social context that we're living through, the times we're in, the real people, the real suffering that's here really opened up the possibility for me, like gave me a lot of permission and active invitation. And then I sought you out and we have connected in so many ways since then. But it is this kind of thing that I hope to be for some people as well, which is, oh,
yeah,
you're having this conversation. That helps me know that maybe I could be part of this conversation, whether that's just in my own inner work or in my workplace or my home, or just planting the seeds and letting them open me to these nudges, these invitations.
Yeah.
So thank you for showing up.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, Caryn, where can folks find out more about your work and what you do?
Yeah, so everything is on my website, carynberley.com. As of right now, there's not something I'm plugging, but if there is, it will be there.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of different podcast channels as well, including a conversation with me and Abby that I absolutely loved. So if you want
Yeah.
more of this, that is called Enneagram Invitations, Saying Yes to Transformation. And you can find that on my website or on anywhere you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Awesome. Again, Caryn, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. Yeah, I'm really glad that we're friends.
Oh, no, I'm gonna cry. It just hit me right in the I mean, it's always funny when you, like, start I mean, we started our relationship with me paying you, and I have this with my clients too, and we worked together for quite a long time,
Yeah.
and also have been able to cultivate such a, colleague and friend level relationship, and I think there's something so special about that that isn't when I was in social work therapy space, the boundaries are set up for reasons. I
Yeah.
totally get them. And I love that I've been able to
Yeah.
connect with you in so many different ways. So grateful.
Mm. Now, this was not the first time Caryn's been on the podcast, and it will certainly not be the last. So I definitely want to have her back. You can see why it was such a beautiful conversation. And well, I love Caryn and I really love chatting with her. And so don't be surprised if you hear some more from her. We might even get some like bonus episodes going. For those of you who are subscribed to the podcast, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Send it to a 9. Send it to a coach, send it to a therapist, send it to somebody who needs a coach or a therapist, but like maybe do that gently if you're going to go that route. Again, I so appreciate your support. And don't forget, the Centering Prayer Summit is January 24th and 25th. Link down below to register. That is an affiliate link. So that is another way you can support the podcast is by registering through that link. I get a tiny bit of the money that you pay for your registration comes to me because you clicked my link. So if you're interested in the Centering Prayer Summit, please use that link. Thank you very much for your support. And don't forget to go over and subscribe to the Substack where you can get access to all of the blogs and writings and teachings and get this podcast delivered right to your inbox. And yeah, I think that just about covers it. I hope you'll have a wonderful week. And until next time, don't forget to breathe.